That the question be now put.
I'm going to call Dr David Clark.
Chairman, I feel that the questions that Phil Goff has raised must surely need to be addressed by the Minister. He's raised some serious issues in pointing out a 17% blowout in costs. He hasn't addressed the question I raised about the regulatory impact statement and the fact that a 15-year-old system that is needing replacement and upgrading appears to be a year behind schedule. The Minister says it's only a couple of months, but the regulatory impact statement, and I'm not clear as to when it was released because I can't see that on the paper, indicates the whole thing would have been live a year ago. Now that is not just a few months, and if that's not sneaky, nothing is. 12 months is stretching a few months a long way. And Mr Goff has raised a very serious issue about the blowout in costs, the fact that this wasn't raised in select committee. He's raised the issue about add-ons, adding one part on here, one part on there, and points out quite rightly that is how INSIS started. That is how INSIS started. And we've seen it in the IRD. I've related the story of the $50 million that was spent last year on international consultants getting to a point where there was in-principle agreement to proceed. But the thing that I did not cover in my previous contribution was that there was another $23 million spent previously trying to get a student loan add-on off the ground. That was cancelled, and probably rightly so in that instance. They realised it wasn't going anywhere. But here again, we have something that does seem to be on the roll, that does seem to be moving. The word that we're getting back is that it's not working properly, and the Minister is trying to talk it down. He's trying to talk it down. He's fanning, but he's actually fanning the flames as he tries to blow things out of his way, left, right and centre. 17% increase in spending, 2 new requirements, sounds like a growing problem, not one that he is going to put out with a few kind words. And I believe that the Minister must address this issue to have any credibility as to why the slippage has happened. This is significant slippage, and why the government is not holding the contractors to account. If he says that a few months slippage is quite understandable, I think that that's a pretty lax standard, and the kinds of contracts that would be signed that said a year's slippage is acceptable would probably not be ones that the taxpayer would regard as sound or in their interests. This is a government that's responsible for spending taxpayer money on systems that are put in place to serve the taxpayer, and yet we hear story after story after story with the ACC spillages of private information. We had Ms Collins of Ovita, how do you say it? Ovita fame. With her leaks out of her office. Well, this is to the point, Mr. Speaker, because it is about privacy breaches, which comes back to IT systems which are not up to the task, which is a repeating issue under this government and is the precise thing that we're dealing with in this bill. And the IRD example is by no means an isolated one. The ACC ones, the other ones that have been mentioned, all fill out a picture, Mr. Speaker.
Member, look, I've mentioned to the member, this is not in the bill. You must confine your comments to the subject matter of the bill. Dr David Clark.
Well, I come back, Mr. Speaker, to the bill which talks about implementing a new computer system that is important to the frontline border security of New Zealand. It may not be NovaPay, may not be the name of it. It may not bear a name like those other ones I've previously mentioned that have now become two taboo words in this House. But it is a system that needs to work for taxpayers to have confidence in the government's ability to manage IT projects and the government's ability to implement this initiative. And we on this side of the House support the principle. We just are concerned that this government has no track record in delivering it. And we are also worried, Mr. Speaker, certainly in other areas I deal with, but also here, about the job of the House. It's expensive to pass legislation through this House. All of the officials that sit here are paid reasonable salaries. All of the members of Parliament are paid reasonable salaries to get on and represent the people in the electorates who put them here. But we are not paid, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest, or it is not a good use of taxpayer money to have bills returning to the House to be corrected because they had not been able to implement the things which the government has sought to put through. And that, Mr Speaker, is a pattern. Again, certainly in the student loan area, which I mentioned earlier, that has happened already, Mr Speaker. And if that were to happen here with border security, it would become something that I think is unacceptable to taxpayers.
Jamie Lee Ross.
I move that the question be now put.
The question is that the question be now put. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Does a member want a party vote? A party vote's been requested. I'll ask the clerk to conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 in favour.
New Zealand Labour. 34 votes opposed. Green Party. Votes opposed. New Zealand First.
7 votes opposed.
Māori Party.
2 in favour.
Mana. Act New Zealand.
1 in favour.
United Future.
1 in favour.
Brendan Horan.
Asleep.
Brendan Horan. Any other votes?
Members, the ayes are 64, the noes are 56. The question will be put. The question is a part 1 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is a part 2 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is at schedule 1 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is at schedule 2 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that clause 1 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that clause 2 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Mr Chairman.
The Honourable Maurice Williamson.
Mr Chairman, I move that the bill be divided into the Customs and Excise Border Processing Trade Single Window and Duties Amendment Bill and the Biosecurity Border Processing Trade Single Window Amendment Bill pursuant to Supplementary Order Paper 419.
Okay. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. I will report this bill without amendment and so divided presently. Sorry? We finished that.
No, it's a different vote. That's border processing, this is trade vote.
Okay. I need a minister. Members, we now move to the Trade Safeguard Measures Bill. When we were last considering this bill,